Alright, so I was recently diagnosed with an AVM in my brain. 29 years old, never had any side effects or any sign of anything being wrong in the past. But I just wanted to make this video to help friends and family understand sort of what we're going through, what I've been through, and then anyone I guess similar to me that may be newly finding out that they've got this AVM and just might have lots of questions and answers, because I've done my research over the past few months and there's not a lot out there, because I think something like 1% of the population have an AVM, and maybe less find out about it until they either die or have serious, complications from the side effects and stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's the goal with the video. So I'll take you through finding out about it. Basically, a week after my 29th birthday, I was on the golf course, had a full convulsive seizure where it started my left hand, moved up my left arm, left face. I thought I was having a stroke or something at the time, but then it just took over my whole body and I was having apparently a convulsive seizure for 1 to 2 minutes. I woke up about 30 to 40 minutes later, basically getting put into the ambulance and then taken to Gold Coast Uni Hospital. Had a CT scan to start, and then the doctor came in and said, based on your scan, we can see there's like a mass on your brain. They weren't sure what it was. They didn't think it was a cancer. They thought it was something else. So they wanted to put me straight into an MRI machine. So yeah, you can imagine how stressful that is, hearing that. You got something in your brain. It's a lot to take in at the time. You're pretty numb to it all. But anyway, go on and do the MRI. Comes back with it's an AVM, so arteriovenous malformation. It's basically like the doctor explained it to me, it's a tangle of blood vessels where the connection between the arteries and veins is disrupted, and the oxygen and blood flowing through it doesn't quite go correctly. I'll try to put a photo up of what it is here, and you can just see it. It kind of looks like a big knot in your brain of blood vessels. So the blood flowing through it doesn't quite do what it's supposed to, or it can cause a lot of problems. And they said, based on this, like there's lots of side effects that can happen, seizures being one of them. And that's sort of what I was having. I had that full seizure, which was caused by the AVM, and I was told I'd need to stay in hospital for a few nights. I think I ended up staying in there for 5 nights. I would need to have a few other scans. I think I ended up getting a angiogram a couple days later, maybe 3 days later. And then you're just, talking to specialists every day, talking to doctors every day. They're monitoring your blood pressure, monitoring all these things to make sure nothing further happens. I had this angiogram, and they can find out that they can map it out a bit better, and they can see exactly in your brain what it looks like and how much it's affecting in your brain. And I found out that mine is a grade 3 AVM. I think they said it was 3 centimeters. I'll try to find the exact number. But it was in a weird location, I was told, based on this angiogram, that it's deep in my brain. So if it was on the surface, it'd be an easy choice to do surgery and to take it out. So I probably would have had it taken out straight away. But because of where mine was, it was deep in the back right side of my brain, not on the surface, it was deep in there. And it was on a location that would be super complicated because it affected my motor control, specifically the left side of my body's motor control. So they wanted me to do this functional MRI to, accurately map out exactly how much of my brain tissue would be affected if they were to do anything. I was told, I would get that scan a week or 2 later. So I wanted to get out of the hospital. They let me out. I was told I'd come back in a couple of weeks to get this functional MRI, but that didn't happen for like 12, 14 weeks. It just kept getting cancelled, kept getting delayed. So, you can imagine my stress dealing with that through the whole time. Like, what the hell's going on? I need answers. Am I getting this thing cut out? Or, the whole process of just dealing with it. But when they let me leave hospital, doctor basically said, don't go back to work yet. At the time, I've been PTing for 10 years. But at that time, I was over in WA doing FIFO, doing PT stuff over there. So they said, don't go back to do FIFO work. It's too far away from, you're too isolated. If something goes wrong, too high a chance that, you might die or something because you can't get to the hospital and you can't get to the surgeon if something happens. So wasn't allowed to go back to work. I was told not to train, not to do anything physical because, there's a chance that it'll bleed. They don't know exactly the exact chance because I haven't had that scan, but don't do anything physical, don't do anything stressful, don't do anything strainful. Basically just, they said don't do anything. So I went home, you know, stressed as, finding out I've got this thing in my brain, not allowed to do the one thing, which is what I've always done, which is exercise. Or that was my, I guess, stress relief would be to go and exercise and, you know, cook myself and numb myself to whatever the hell's going on and process it all in my way. But when you're not allowed to do that, it's a weird one, man. Like, you know, being stuck at home, partner's still got to go to work, family are all working, you know, everyone tries to talk to you and meet with you when they can, but just going through the whole process of accepting it all and just wondering, you know, what the hell's going on. It was a lot, honestly, the first month or two. But anyway, you get through it all, you know, like eventually my functional MRI is booked. I think it was about 12, 13 weeks after I originally left the hospital. I got pushed up to Brisbane Hospital. You go on the machine, you know, a normal MRI machine, but you have to do movement because of my specific one. I have to do movement, so I have to move my left hand, left fingers, left foot, right foot. And you're in there for like an hour, hour 10, hour 20, just doing different movements. And it basically lights up in your brain, you know, what is being used when you do certain things. And then from that scan, they can say exactly, you know, what are the risks, what are the chances of complications happening if they do the surgery. So eventually, you know, I've done that scan, I go back to the hospital 2-3 weeks later, and then I have my meeting with the, you know, the big meeting with the specialist where they say, this is what's happening, this is the likelihood, yada, yada, yada. But anyway, they say basically no surgery to happen. That's too high risk with my location. It's directly in the spot where I would basically be left paralyzed because it's too high risk. It's touching everything from my left face, you know, left hand, left arm, left leg. Yeah, they said the risk is way too high that I would be left paralyzed for my whole left side of my body, you know, and then they weigh up, is it worth doing that, or at the moment just living with it? And living with it, you know, at that, like after 12, 14 weeks, I kind of got back to normal kind of life as far as the way I feel, moving, walking, you know, doing all these things. Like I wasn't training or, you know, doing much like that, but I felt almost normal. So, you know, they're saying you can, you know, rebuild your life and do these things with limitations, or if you do the surgery, you know, there's such a high risk that you'll be left, you know, paralyzed. So the answer is easy, you know, don't do the surgery, but now you got to deal with it and process it all and live life with an AVM. So my AVM didn't show any signs of bleeding, which is a positive, because if it had of bled in the past, there's a high risk that it would bleed again. And with bleeding, you know, comes a risk of death. And for my specific one would be being paralyzed more likely, or other problems like some people, you know, lose their memory, lose their function, lose their talk. Some people lose their eyesight. Like there's lots of crazy things on AVMs. It all depends on where it is and, you know, how big it is, how bad it is, how much it's bled and all these things. My one positively hasn't bled, so, but I am having, you know, the side effects of seizures and stuff. So I'm on anti-seizure medication for the rest of my life. I'm not allowed to drive for 6 months initially, and then as long as I don't have seizures, I think I'm allowed to get back to driving, which is cool, you know, bit of independence again and do what I want. But the things that most affect me is, you know, you're told you're not allowed to train, or you're allowed to train, but you're not allowed to train to a point where it's strainful. And that's such a gray area, you know, like I've always trained, I like to think hard, so, and I've always enjoyed that, and my life has always been that, you know, like I was told no longer allowed to do jiu-jitsu, no longer allowed to do any physical work if I want to do physical work, because, you know, if I lift anything too heavy, it can do too much strain that it might pop and bleed. So, you know, there's all these weird things that I would normally do and love, and, you know, that was my lifestyle, but, you know, not being able to lift heavy, or what does that mean? It's a very great area where it's now up to me to figure out how much can I do. And obviously I don't want to push my limits, but I'd like to, you know, get back to semi-normal life of being able to exercise and feel good and, you know, look good, and just mentally be getting some strain relief out through exercise. So that's sort of the process that I'll be going through soon, and I hope that the coming videos sort of help people see, you know, if you've got an AVM, this is what I'm doing. I'm not the specialist with it, but I've got one, so you can see how much I'm limiting myself. But yeah, basically I was told, you know, no jiu-jitsu, no strainful work. At the time I had an offer to do a different job, which I was super excited for, but that is, you know, classified as too risky, too high risk. I'm told I've got to keep my blood pressure down, keep my heart rate down. Basically live a tame life as far as what I was living before, which is, it is what it is. Processing it all. Still live an awesome life, still live a good life as long as it doesn't bleed. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll share a little bit more just so that, if people have one, or it's so, there's such a low number of people have one, so you can just sort of see the weird restrictions I'll be putting on myself, and hopefully if you've got an AVM, you get a bit of confidence to see what I do with, exercise being my release, and sort of what we can still do, and hopefully live a normal life. But yeah, is that all I wanted to say? I think so. If you've got questions, if you've recently been diagnosed with an AVM and you want to talk, feel free to shoot us a message, or even if you don't, if you're someone interested in whatever's going on, if you've got questions, feel free to ask me, because it's not common knowledge. I'd like to raise a bit of awareness, because it's crazy, man. Like, you're told you can go your whole life, you never know you had one, and then when you're 80, 90, have a brain scan and they're like, oh, you've had this your whole life. So, knowing that some people do that and they never have any side effects or anything like that is crazy for me, because, I've always done things. I've whacked my head how many times playing rugby, jiu-jitsu, getting choked out, and, like just being physical my whole life, doing exercise and sport and all that stuff. And, what causes the seizure, I don't know, you're not sure. But, it's up to me to not risk it. But yeah, hopefully that answered a few questions. If you've got any questions, feel free to comment or just shoot me a message, and I'll hopefully be able to help you out. Or, yeah. But we'll be making more videos. I'll show you what I get up to. But yeah, talk soon.